This is John Henry Faulks' Christmas story. The day after Christmas, a number of years ago, I was driving down a country road in Texas, and it was a bitter, cold morning. And walking ahead of me on the gravel road was a little barefooted boy with nondescript ragged overalls and a makeshift sleeve sweater tied around his little ears. I stopped and picked him up. Looked like he was about 12 years old, and his little feet were blue with the cold. He was carrying an orange, and he got in and had the brightest blue eyes one ever saw. And he turned a bright smile on my face and says, "I'm going down the road about 2 miles to my cousin's. I want to show him my orange old Santa Claus brought me." But I wasn't going to mention Christmas to him because I figured he came from a family, well, the kind that don't have Christmas. But he brought it up himself. He said, "Did old Santa Claus come to see you, mister?" And I said, "Yes, we had a real nice Christmas at our house, and I hope you had the same." He paused for a moment, looked at me, and then with all the sincerity in the world said, "Mister, we had the wonderfulest Christmas in the United States down to our place. Lordy, it was the first one we had ever had there. See, he never do them much out there. Don't notice when Christmas time comes. We heard about it, but never did have one because, well, it just Papa says that old Santa Claus, Papa hoorahs a lot and said old Santa Claus was scared to bring his reindeer down into our section of the county because folks down there are so hard up that they liable to catch one of his reindeer and butcher him for meat." But just several days before Christmas, a lady came out from town and she told all the families through there, our family too, that old Santa Claus was come in town and leave some things for us, and if Papa'd go in town, he would get some Christmas time for all of us. And Papa hooked up the mule and the wagon. He went into town, but he told us children, he said, "Now, don't y'all get all worked up and excited because there might not be nothing to this yarn that lady told." But shucks, he hadn't got out of sight up the lane there till we was done watching him to come back. We couldn't get our eyes on nothing else. And Mama, she'd come to the door once in a while and say, "Now y'all quit that looking up the lane because Papa told you there might not be nothing." But along about the middle of the afternoon, we heard the team of jangling harness a-coming, and we ran out in the front yard, and Ernie, my little brother, called out and said, "Yonder come Papa." And here come them mules just in a big trot, and Papa standing upright in the bed of that wagon holding 2 big old chickens, all the feathers picked off, and he was just yelling, "Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas!" And the team stopped right in front of the gate, and all us children just went a-swarming out there like a flock of chi-chis, and just a-crawling over that wagon and a-looking in. And mister, I wish you could have seen what was in that wagon. It's bags of stripedy candy and apples and oranges and sacks of flour and some real coffee, and just all tinsely and pretty, and we couldn't say nothing. Just kind of held our breath and looked at it. And Papa standing there just waving them 2 chickens and yelling, "Merry Christmas to you! Merry Christmas to you!" And laughing that big old grin on his face. And Mama, she come a-hurrying out with the baby in her arms, And when she looked in that wagon, she just stopped. And then Papa, he dropped them 2 chickens and reached and caught the baby out of her arms, and held him up and said, "Merry Christmas to you, Santa Claus." And baby, little old Alvy Lee, he just laughed like he knowed it was Christmas too, And Mama, she started as to telling us the name of all them nuts. They wasn't just peanuts. She had names for all of them. My Mama knows a heap of things like that. She'd seen that stuff before, And he was, all of us, just a-chattering and a-going on at the same time, us young'uns a-looking in there. And all of a sudden, we heard Papa call out, "Merry Christmas to you, Sam Jackson." And we stopped and looked, and here comes Sam Jackson, a-leading that old cripple-legged mule of his up the lane. And Papa said, "Sam Jackson, did you get in town to get some Christmas this year?" Sam Jackson, he sharecrops over there across the creek from our place, and he shook his head and said, "Well, no, sir, mister. Well, I didn't go into town. I heard about that, but I didn't know it was for colored folks too. I thought it was just for you white families." All of a sudden, none of us children were saying nothing. Papa, he looked down at Mama, and Mama looked up at him, and they didn't say nothing. Like they don't a heap of times, but they know what the other ones are thinking. They're like that, you know. And all of a sudden, Papa, he broke out in a big grin again. He said, "Well, Dad, blame it, Sam Jackson. It's sure a good thing you come by here. Lord of mercy, I'd like to forgot. Old Santa Claus would have me in court if he heard about this. The last thing he asked me if I lived out here near you. Said he hadn't seen you around and said he wanted me to bring you part of this out here to you and your family, your woman and your children." Well, sir, Sam Jackson, he broke out in a big grin. Papa says, "I'll tell you what to do. You get your wife and children and you come down here tomorrow morning. It's going to be Christmas time all day long. Come early and stay late." Sam Jackson said, "You reckon?" And Mama called out to him and said, "Yes, and you tell your wife to be sure and bring some pots and pans because we're going to have a heap of cooking to do, and I ain't sure I've got enough to take care of it all." Well, sir, old Sam Jackson, he started off leading that mule up the lane in full trot, you know, and he was heading home to get the word to his folks and his children, you know. And next morning, you remember how it was yesterday morning? Just rosy red and looked like Christmas time. It was cold, but you didn't notice the cold, you know, when the sun just come up, just all rosy red. And us young'uns, we're all out of bed before daylight, seemed like, just running in the kitchen and smelling and looking, and it was all there, sure enough. And here comes Sam Jackson and his team and his wife and his 5 young'uns in there, and they's all looking over the edge, and we run out and yelled, "Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas!" And Papa said, "Christmas gift to you, Sam Jackson. Y'all come on in." And they come in, and Mama and Sister Jackson, they got in the kitchen, and they started cooking things up, and us young'uns started playing Christmas time. And it was a lot of fun, you know. We'd just play Christmas gift with one another, and we'd run around and around the house and just roll in the dirt, you know. And then we started going up to the kitchen door and smell. That was our game. Go up to the kitchen door and smell. And we'd run up and smell inside that kitchen door where Mama and Sister Jackson was cooking at, and then we just die laughing and roll in the dirt, you know, and go chasing around and playing Christmas gift. And we played Christmas time till we just wore ourselves out. And Papa and Sam Jackson, they put up a table and put some sheets over it. They put up some boards up over some sawhorses, and everybody had a place, even the baby. And Mama and Sister Jackson said, "Well, now it's ready to come on in. We were going to have Christmas dinner." And I sat right next to Willie Jackson, you know, and he just rolled his eyes at me, and I'd roll mine at him, and we just died laughing. And there was an apple and an orange and some stripedy candy at everybody's place. And that was just dessert, see? That wasn't the real Christmas dinner. Mama and them had done cooked that up, and they had just spread it up and down the table. And so Papa and Sam Jackson, they'd been sitting on the front porch, and they come in. Papa, he sat at one end of the table, and Sam Jackson sat at the other. And it was just a beautiful table like you had never seen. And I didn't know nothing could ever look like that and smell that good, you know. And Sam Jackson, you know, he's real black, and he had on that white clean shirt of his and them overalls. Everything had been washed and was real clean. Papa, he said, "Brother Jackson, I believe you're a deacon in the church. I ain't much of a church man myself, but I believe you're a deacon. Maybe you'd be willing to give grace." Well, Sam Jackson, he stood up there and his hands was real big and he kind of held on to the side of the table, you know, but he didn't bow his head like a heap of folks do when they're saying the blessing. He just looked up and smiled and said, "Lord, I hope you're having as nice a Christmas up there with your angels as we're having down here, because it sure is Christmas time down here. And I just wanted to say Merry Christmas to you, Lord." Like I say, mister, I believe that was the wonderfulest Christmas time in the United States of America.